Okay, good morning once again, everyone. So I'm happy to be the presenter of this session, and I'm here with my colleague Prince, and this is our first accelerator session for our cherished subscribers. My name is Isaac, and I'll be taking you through today's session. Today we are going to learn how to, power financial health with the vital role of receipts and invoices. And so when we talk about financial health, basically we are talking about the status of your company, financial status, whether you're making profits, whether your cash flow is up to mark. And in terms of financial health, there are two things. It's either you are maintaining a positive financial health or a negative financial health. So if you look at your financial health in terms of uh, let's say your cash flow management, what is the rate of your expenses, what is the rate of your sales, how much or how many of them have you recorded, and in terms of closing all the transactions, how many expenses have been fully paid for, how many have been partially paid and are still being tracked. In terms of the sales, are you doing the same? But there are certain things that we can look at. For example, if we are looking at the aspect of receipts and invoices, they can also boost financial health in a way that when you keep your receipts and invoice routines very like closely monitored, you can use this to boost your financial health or make sure that your financial health is in a very positive status. So when it comes to receipts and invoices, they should not be downplayed because these are documents that go beyond being just paperwork, but they help us, carry out some sort of compliance, and then it helps us also like optimize our operations. In terms of businesses operations becomes the most difficult thing and expensive because this is where you are trying to put in a routine and make sure that you follow through whilst you manage your profit and loss. So if you have receipts and invoices backing every transactions related to your operations, it also helps you to move to the next stage where you are driving growth. This means that you are monitoring every aspect of your transactions, and then you are making sure that you are becoming lean as possible to also finally ensure that you are making profits. Now, the first aspect of today we are focusing on receipts and invoices to boost financial health. And when we look at the first highlight, it talks about financial accountability. Now, if you're turned off or you are fond of sharing receipts and invoices, this ensures transparency. So it means that what you are doing, if you have employees, they can see, and then if you have any external auditors, they can also see this because you're sharing receipts through your financial transactions, and this helps you to maintain accurate records. So, for example, if you are an event organizer who pre-finances requests and orders, um, for you and your clients, you don't have a choice than to share receipts and invoices all the time. Because the moment you don't do this and you have a recorded transaction, now it becomes a situation where the customer is going to disagree with you in terms of the transactions that you have not what shared receipts or invoices with them, because they will say, okay, fine. How do I know that this price is not inflated? How do I know that you are not cheating me? And mostly this becomes a situation. So for our quote for this side, Warren Buffett quotes that transparency is key in financial matters. It builds trust and what it fosters integrity. So once you have you're in a position of this event organizer, and most of them are in a position to pre-finance everything before they send bills to their clients. It's very important that at every step of the point, you send receipts or invoices for purchases you've made, that you're anticipating payment from your clients. Now, according to a study by Association of Certified Product Examiners, um, organizations that carry out like strictly like invoices and then receipts routines, and they have these tracking systems, they experience a significantly lower instances of financial mismanagement. Somebody will ask why. Because for every transaction that you record, you are sending a receipt or invoice for it, depending on the payment status, right? And if you're able to do this for all your transactions, it means that at the end of the month, at the end of the week, when you are checking out these routines, you have your transaction against the receipts that you shared or the invoice that you shared. So you know that the figure on the receipt will definitely not be different from the figure or the sum in the transaction, whether it's an expense or a sale. And also, transparent financial records leads to increased trust among stakeholders. So you can just note that if you are rigorously recording transactions, and then for each transactions you are sending receipts and invoices, it makes it very easy for you, the business owner, because in this case you have something to compare with: the receipts on the right side, the transaction status or the transaction description on the left side, and then you can compare the figures to know what is happening and what you have done. So our first topic for discussion would be um, how often do you send receipts to your customers, or how often do you demand receipts from invoices from receipts from your suppliers? So we can ponder over this, and then reflect and see whether we choose certain customers to send our invoices and receipts to. Why do we do that? Is it safe to do that? Because sometimes you think, okay, fine, this customer doesn't need a receipt or invoice, or maybe I don't think they will need a receipt or invoice. But this is the point of reflection. This is the point of reflection where you can think through if it is really important for you to share receipts and invoices to almost every customer, or you like to select a few. In instances where the person you don't share your receipts or invoice with, in case of disputes, we'll visit this session. How would you treat the person? The next point is tax compliance. Keeping and sharing receipts is also very essential for tax obligation. Once you have your transactions backed by receipts and then and invoices, it's easy for you to fulfill your tax obligation, because you know how much profit you've made, you know how much like expenses you've incurred, and then by deducting this from your sales, you know how much you have left after profit, and then you know the amount left to pay as tax. Um, an anonymous quote says that to err is human, to evade tax is a crime. Tax evasion in every country is a crime. So as business owners, we also have to make it a point to ourselves to make sure that we are rigorously recording our expenses and our sales, and then sharing receipts and invoices to make sure that what we have our true, state of business insights to help us calculate our profits and then fulfill our tax obligation. Now, our case study here is being a freelancer. So you collect receipts and invoices. You don't say that, okay, fine. For this job is a big job, so I have to send them an invoice. And then for the working customers who come for the small designs, you just take money and then you put it down and then you go. When you do that, it doesn't help your business. And so our next fact is that research conducted by IRS indicates that up to 21% of taxpayers may unintentionally underreport their income due to inadequate record keeping. Now, if you are sending receipts and invoices to your customers or your clients, you'll be able to check if uh, ideally they were able to receive your receipts. And sometimes where you don't even have the transactions, you can check your last conversation with them to put the digital receipts you shared with them through the OZ app. And it also goes ahead to say that individuals and businesses that maintain the thorough records, including receipts and invoices, are better equipped to accurately report income and claim legitimate deductions, reducing the risk of audits and penalties. Now, there's also a part, maybe it might not be your fault completely, but what will happen is that if you don't have some of the transactions recorded, even to the extent that you don't have receipts shared with these customers, it will be difficult for you to get any facts or any description related to this transaction. So it might not be your fault, but in a way, it will be your fault because now that you don't have any detail, the transaction is not written down, it's not documented, it's not recorded, no receipts or invoice has been shared relating to this transaction. It means that the money will be in your coffers, but you cannot pinpoint which transaction is linked to this amount of money. And so you that is where the fact is that they may unintentionally underreport. So when it comes like that, it happens that way. You scrap that money somewhere, and then you report only on the items you have documented. This means that when you are being audited and you have the money in your account, you could just put monies or list monies or sums of monies or opening balance or closing balances that may not link to the transactions that you have listed. So it means that the money is there, but we can't find where the description of that particular transaction, right? And this happens when you refuse to share receipts, because at least if you don't record and you share receipts on that particular receipt, you might have written something down which will help you record the transaction back. And so our activity here is to discuss um, information or document retrieval for transactions. When you face this situation, how easy or difficult was it for you to retrieve um, transaction information for a receipt or an invoice that you've not shared? So let's say you have an auditor by you and is asking for this 50 cedis that is in your account. Where is the transaction? What date? And you are unable to find a document or any transaction related to this particular amount of money. How were you able to also go out of this mess? So let this also be a question for reflection. The next highlight is that invoices and let's say receipts helps in expense tracking. Now, these are tools for monitoring spending habits, right? And then also budgeting effectively, and then identifying areas for potential cost saving measures. Now, the first one is in terms of our expenses, right? We buy from our suppliers. These are goods we place in our inventory almost all the time. Now, before we move out, we've taken receipts for these. Now, if you pick each receipt by each description, you can see that there's a higher trend in terms of some of the items you are keeping, and then there's a lower trend. So it helps you calculate your expenses and know if I am reducing it or I am increasing it. In your next activity that let's say you want to go for the month is due, you want to go for new purchases. This is what you are going to monitor and then cut some of the budgets so you know what you are going for. You don't go outside what your expenditure is stating. And then also it helps us identify areas um, for cost saving measures. For example, if I am paying utility bill as my expense, and maybe last month I spent like 500 cedis of 500 cedis on electricity alone. If I pick my receipts to check, and I realize that this is quite alarming, it also informs me to take a measure, right? It helps me take a measure in such a way that, okay, what can I do to reduce my electricity or utility bill? If I am using AC, can I substitute it with natural air? Depending on what your practice is. So it goes beyond just monitoring to track the expense, but it helps you also make business decisions to make profits. So, for example, if you're managing, in this our case study, it says that if you're managing a small business, by constantly sharing receipts and invoices for office supplies, utilities, um, employee reimbursements, you can track monthly expenses, analyze your spending patterns, and make informed decisions, as I said earlier on, to optimize your budget. So it means that if you share receipts and invoices, you are able to, once you sit down, you don't need to open your whole docket, but once you have the receipts and invoices available, you're able to pick them, monitor your expenses, and then also optimize them in such a way that you don't exceed. Because as business owners, the main goal is to what? Make sure that our expenses are always lower than our sales in order to make profits. So Benjamin Franklin states that what every penny saved is a penny earned. This means that you don't leave money to chance. Sometimes there are some of us as business owners where we make purchases and then even we have change left with our supplier. We say, well, because this is a small denomination, you can keep it. But as Benjamin Franklin is stating, every penny saved is every penny earned. Now, our fact here is saying that a survey conducted by the National Association of Professional Organizers found that individuals who regularly track their expense are 27% more likely to stick to their budgets compared to those who don't. So by sharing receipts and invoices and leveraging expense tracking tools like the OZ app, you're able to gain valuable insights into your spending habits, as I said in the earlier slide. So you're able to monitor what you are spending on. You don't just spend sporadically, because if you do that, you are not guaranteed that you are going to get a huge number of sales. That also depends on the marketing that you have done. But once you are going through this routine, you'll be able to what? Track your expenses and then make sure that you are in line. Even if you're exceeding, you are not exceeding exorbitantly. Now, the activity for this side is to discuss how often you track your expenses. Is this a routine that is frequently done or it is randomly done? One thing as business owners is that we are likely to go through our normal business routines, our normal business operations by buying and selling. But when it comes to monitoring our sales and expenditure, it becomes very difficult for us because we assume we don't have the time to do that. So this will be a reflection for us that how often do we track our expenses? Is this routine done randomly or is done, you have a schedule where you've picked, let's say, 1 hour of your time in a week to say that, okay, I'm using this time 1 hour every Friday, maybe Friday evenings or Friday morning to monitor how much I'm spending. And then also think and then brainstorm on how I can cut these expenses. So my advice is that if you're doing it randomly, gradually switch from that and then have a routine set aside for you. So don't find in this means you might be the only one, in the business. So when you are starting, it's very difficult because you are the operations person, you are the finance person, you're a man of many hats. So what will happen is that you tend to be tired and then you neglect the aspect of sharing receipts and invoices, or maybe monitoring your receipts and then invoices just to track expenses. It helps you make decisions, maybe on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, so that you don't have to wait till the end of a long period before you gather every document to analyze. Now, the fourth part is dispute resolution. Having, if you have documented proof of your transaction, it always helps for you to resolve disputes with your clients and the people you provide services to. Now, a quote here is by Tony Robbins, who says that it is not about being right, it's about finding a resolution that both parties can live with. Sometimes, as business owners, I'm sure we've all had the experience of you having difficulty in debt recovery. You sell something to a customer, a very cherished customer, and then because he or she is your friend, you don't really go through a documented process. You don't even record this transaction. All you do is you hand over the product and then you receive cash and then you pocket it. And for friends, mostly we are likely to do, partial transactions with them. So they might pay half, and then in due course, we arrange with them that, okay, you can pay the half within the following week or the following month. Now, this is where it becomes difficult because at the point we face situations where we've gone back to retrieve the rest of our items, the rest of our payments, where we didn't get the full payment because there was a dispute over the remaining amount to pay. Now, in this case that you don't have any receipts or invoice to show this transaction, in this case, to be an invoice because it's a partially paid transaction. If you don't have any documentation to show, who will be your witness? And if you don't have a witness, because here the only witness is you and the customer, and it will be your word against theirs. And if you don't take time, this can also strain the relationship because they will think they are right, you will think you are right. And because you don't have any evidence, it will be difficult for you to resolve this amicably. So in our case study, it says if you hire a contractor to renovate your office, sharing receipts and invoices for materials and then labor protects both parties. So you don't allow the person to buy everything. Okay, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. You don't check receipts, you don't check invoices, and then they are done. And the contractor says, you owe me this amount. There's no breakdown, there's nothing. Now, if there's an disagreement, the only thing that can help save situation is where you have shared receipts and invoices from both parties. At least you have their email, you have their WhatsApp numbers. You can check and then make sure that, okay, on this date, this amount, this receipt bearing this amount, or this invoice bearing this amount was sent from my end to yours. So once I have it, it's always easy, and it doesn't bring much stress between two parties. Now, our fact here is that research published in the Journal of Business and Industrial Marketing highlights the importance of documentation in resolving customer disputes. No matter what happens, for customers, you'd have to share receipts and invoices. And it shows that businesses that maintain detailed records, including receipts and invoices, can address complaints more efficiently, leading to a higher customer satisfaction and loyalty. So whether the customer likes it or not, if they say they haven't paid or they've paid this amount, you have the invoice or the receipt to send to them to show that on this day, this is what I sent you. I have it on my end. You also have it on your end. Now, if you don't have it, which channel did they send it through? Is it your WhatsApp? Is that your number? Is it your email address? Was the email address missed or was the right one? So here you don't have much rigorous routines to go through in terms of resolving a simple situation like that. However, if you don't have a receipt or a document shared with this customer, then it means that definitely you are going to lose the money that is left to be paid to you, or you are going to lose the customer because they might pay out of anger and might never return to you again. So the activity here is to discuss debt recovery strategies you used in cases where you didn't have invoices for partial payment. How were you able to go through this? What happened to your customer? Did your customer return? Are you still on good terms? What lessons did you learn from this? The final point is legal protection. Sharing receipts and invoices is also a concrete evidence in contractual agreements or legal disputes. It helps both parties against misunderstanding or what losing like a significant amount of money. For example, if you in our case study here, it says if you rent an office space, demanding receipts and invoices for rent payments and maintenance expenses from your landlord, it helps you what establish a transparent rental agreement. Sometimes it must not go just beyond the signing of the tenancy agreement between you and the landlord who is subletting or renting the office space to you. You must also demand receipts for payments made. So if you paid for the rents, make sure you have your receipts backing the documents. Because if the landlord is no longer alive, fine, there are receipts and there are signatures on it, but where is the evidence that you made payments? So the agreement and then the receipts will what complement each other, and that will not make your evidence a partial one. So in event of dispute over property damage where you've you've made payments for certain repairs that you've made in the office, and then claims of unpaid rents, these documents will provide essential legal protection anytime you are in court or you have a lawsuit to address. So our quote for this slide is that in matters of law, evidence is everything. And this was quoted by John Adams, who is the second president of the United States. Now, our fact here is that this research was done by the American Bar Association, which revealed that in legal disputes involving contracts or financial transactions, parties with well-documented evidence, such as receipts or invoices, are significantly more likely to prevail in court or settle out of court on favorable terms. Because if you are doing a proper record keeping and you have your invoices and your receipts to back the transaction that you recorded, it helps you, it protects your interest, because where the other party doesn't have, then it means that you have been able to go through the correct routine to provide your evidence, which is everything. Now, the last activity is to discuss the possibility of keeping all receipts and invoices in digital folders and clouds. When you're using the OZE app, you share digital receipts and invoices. Now, if it is not going through a mail, and then let's say your business becomes very, very big, because at the point you are likely to get an OZE loan to expand your business, employ extra employees, and then become very big in a way that you will not be able to do everything on your own. In terms of gathering receipts and invoices, how will you be able to capture everything in one place? Now the OZE app is providing you the receipts and invoices. You have the statement or the cash flow statement from your reports anytime you extract it. Now in the future, let's say 20 years to come, 15 years to come, if you have a very rigorous audit firm auditing your company, or you have a legal suit that you have to present all these documents, how will you be able to do it? And so in our activity session, we will discuss, or the point for reflection will be the possibility of keeping all receipts and invoices in digital folders or clouds. Now, the advice is that if you have a folder on your phone, or let's say you have a Google Drive or an iCloud, you can create a folder, and then as and when you record your transactions and you have the receipts, as part of your expense monitoring or your financial monitoring routines, which I've advised to do, weekly or depending on the time you have available. You can gather all these receipts and save them in folders in the cloud so that in the near future, when somebody takes over from you or you have extra employees who are taking certain roles from you, they have access to this information and then they know that there's a date for each particular document and then the description for this transaction. So as far as it goes, even if it's for the past 5 years, the past 10 years, you are building a repository of evidence or let's say receipts and invoices to help you go through auditing purposes and in terms of like, declaring your statements and then backing the financial statements with your transaction statements. It helps a lot. So to bring the session to a close, all we are saying is that boosting the financial health of your business through receipts and invoices empowers businesses to navigate their financial journeys. So if you have this, you've shared your receipts, shared your invoices, you have them documented there. If you pick your sales, you are going through sales, you are going through the sales that are partially paid for, and then you know when to follow your customer. You know what to claim from them because you know the previous amount they paid, and then the balance was left on the receipt, the invoice to be paid. So once you close this, you know where to move to. Once you are done, you deduct all your expenses from your sales, and then you know your profits left because what you have a guided financial journey that you are monitoring. And then it's also like very paramount to track this because the most important thing is that it helps you maintain a particular standard and a routine, and then ultimately helps you to become profitable. And so to promote financial health, a positive financial health, let's make sure that for every transaction that we are carrying out or we are recording, we send out a receipt or an invoice to back this transaction in order to help us track and get meaningful insights from our financial statements and our routines. Thank you very much. I'll open the floor for questions and then we'll bring the session to an end. Thank you. So Prince, I have my colleagues Prince and then Oti on the call. If you have any additions to you can add while we wait for the questions.
Yeah, thanks, Isaac. This was a very fantastic presentation, and I do believe that for those that joined, they've learned a few couple of things. On my end, I just want to add that everything that you said is absolutely accurate, and we usually, as businesses, underestimate the power of receipts. There is this popular quote that I know about receipts and says that receipts and invoices are not just financial records. They are the silent ambassadors of integrity, showcasing a commitment to professionalism and ethical conduct in every transaction. So basically, as a business owner, if you're generating receipts or invoices, you're actually creating an ambassadorial persona for your business. Your business doesn't just become pen and paper or numbers, but you're creating a human being that communicates that, hey, I have integrity. And because of that, I'm letting you know, based on the transactions that we did, these are the details. And you're also telling the person that you are showing a commitment to be professional with the person and also adhere to high standards of ethical, transactions and all of that. So we may understate the fact that because every time people are asking for receipts and invoices, it is normal. But you're putting your business on a different level when you're seriously, embarking on generating receipts and invoices. And the one thing to that I'll add to what Isaac has said is, as a business, it's important to always be thinking, where is the world headed, to, or where are we going, as a global, planet. Everything is now becoming more paperless, and so it's easier to have to get papers lost. Papers can get missing, papers can get torn, papers can just disappear, and it's more difficult transferring a receipt that is a hard copy to somebody than you know digitizing your receipts and invoice activities. And so as a business, maybe you can do both, right? You can have both a hard copy and a soft copy, but we'll always encourage you to always find a way to have a digitized version of receipts so that even 10 years from now, you can find it in a cloud. You can easily access it when it's push comes to shove and all of that. So let's be thinking about these kinds of things. And I really like the presentation that Isaac did. If anyone has questions, please, yeah, feel free to throw it out there.
Okay, so for the activity questions, for the fact that we have a few participants on the call, I would go through some of the questions. So for Patricia, in terms of um, sending receipts and invoices, we just wanted to know if is it every customer that you send receipts and invoices to, or sometimes you would like to study the caliber of person before you send a receipt or an invoice to.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Patricia.
Is there a question?
Yes, it's actually a question whether you've experienced that or like with your app you send receipts and invoices with your OZ app. I wanted to know
Yes, please.
for your customers, do you send to everybody who buys from you, and for your suppliers too, do you demand receipts for all the purchases that you do, or you are very selective when you are doing this?
All right. So I used to send to everyone,
Okay.
but um, it came to a time sometimes I'm not able to. Just yesterday I had a picture, and when you were talking, I'm just like thinking, oh, I have to send the receipt to this lady. But sometimes there are challenges like the person has paid slightly higher than the normal amount, or something. How I would from my units, how I will adjust the a- amount to get exactly how much the person paid. Sometimes I get troubles with that, and that may hinder because I don't want to send a receipt to someone who um the money will be levered 2 cedis to rate or 5 cedis, or it's also more than what the person paid, slightly higher. So sometimes I get challenges like that, but the long and short of it is that right now, sometimes I skip. Sometimes I'm not able to send to everyone.
Everyone. Okay. Okay. But are there some of the customers that you decide that, okay, this customer definitely, whatever happens, they are getting a receipt or they are getting an invoice?
Not really. Unless maybe as I said, I used to send, but these days I've relaxed. So I'm happy I'm joining the meeting. Unless you really ask, these days I've really relaxed. But I can just decide that, oh, let me send you your receipt. And not because of anything. Maybe I'm free. Entrepreneurship is a lot of things. So
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
we get overwhelmed with all that we are doing. So
No.
like when I'm in that um um if I'm able to, like if I have that time to forward it, I do it. Sometimes to my internet doesn't work well. And as I'm trying to send receipt, then the line is just coming from beginning to end and it's
Oh,
all but it just makes you interested. You feel like I'll get back to you later, and before I realize, maybe you have missed.
Okay, okay. Thanks for the feedback. And then the last part is for your suppliers. Do you always demand a receipt from them when you buy from them?
Unfortunately, no, I don't. Sometimes the receipts, sometimes I even get it and I misplace them. Sometimes to the lighter and the fade, the ink, it fades off and you pick it in some months and you can't even tell what receipt is what.
Okay, okay. But are you not afraid? Sometimes when you get home and you realize that the items are not what you
Oh,
ordered for, don't you?
it's a minute. You mean from suppliers?
Yes. So example, you buy maybe like 16 cartons of a particular product, you get home and then the receipt you have is not for 16, but maybe it's for 15, or maybe it's for just entirely different products that were given to you.
It's a problem. I haven't even had time to cross check those things, but what you're saying, I had an experience that I bought my packaging, and now I wasn't doing packaging. Then when I decided to do a lot of manufacturing, I realized that um, some leads were not. I didn't have leads for all containers, so I couldn't even track even whether I received the same number I ordered for or not. But because each container, I couldn't get leave for each container, I had to go back. And it was all about, oh, we gave it to you, you misplaced it. And I couldn't also tell whether maybe I mistakenly misplaced it or not. So that's another one. So
Okay, okay, Patricia, we are very grateful for the insightful feedback. My next activity question, I'll move to Mr. Roger. So, Mr. Adiko, in cases where you didn't have any information for a particular transaction, and you were challenged with disputes between you and you had disputes with you and between yourself and your customer, just to agree on what the person paid or what they are left to pay. How did you go over it? Have you faced any situation like that?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I have I think it was on 2 occasions. One, it was amicable because the gentleman was quite understanding on the issue. But the second one was tough because he remembered, yes, he had a balance to pay, but he was not agreeing on the amount. And unfortunately for me, I also didn't record. And then I think we did the paper. He sent me a WhatsApp.
Okay.
Yes, and I don't know what, I mean, strangely enough, I couldn't find it in his WhatsApp again. I could also look, I couldn't get it. But I remembered he had a quarter of the amount to pay. Because normally when I'm giving credit, I try to be a little bit circumspect and look at the customer because it's difficult collecting monies from people once they take them. That's how I've come to realize I've come to experience. So normally if I'll do a quarter, you pay me 3/4, then we take the 1/4 away and on credit, and then on the scheduled date and agreed time, you pay back.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, and then this guy who said no, he thought he had paid, and he remembers. Unfortunately, he cannot prove from his end. I didn't have anything to show he has paid, and he wasn't agreeing. But somewhere along the line, I left it out. I even wrote it off as a bad debt. I didn't mind him. But later on, he came back and said he has remembered, and then he paid.
Okay.
So that's why I'm really enjoying this session, because keeping receipts and invoices are very, 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 very important. And if you don't take time, sometimes it will lead to losing a customer because of some small dispute about something small. Maybe it's a good customer, but the fact that you're not keeping records, or you haven't gotten things right, you could end up losing a customer. I think so.
That's true. Thanks for the feedback. Right now we are getting correct feedback from the resource persons and from the field directly. And so in terms of recording going through this routine, how often do you dedicate? Do you have a dedicated time to, record your transactions, or you do it as and when it happens, or maybe when you find free time, then you try and then do it?
In my case, normally I have a time after the day sales. Normally, what I do is that I supply. So once I'm supplying out, I pick the list of names, those who've ordered the quantities and everything. And then once everything is done, we go and do the supply. So when we go and do the supply, we tick those we've supplied. When I send my dispatch or the driver to go and do it, we tick those that have been supplied. So once he brings it back that these supplies, these quantities have been given out, and maybe what is left is this, or he also gave it to different people who didn't even order at all and were not in the list. So he had added them on. He brings back, I keep a copy of the list here. So he also goes and then he takes and brings it back. Then when he comes back in the evening, normally when I'm around, then I prepare the invoices and then I forward them to the people.
Wow,
yes, with those who have paid, those who have paid in full, those who are yet to pay. I mean, he just lists it on the paper. And so, so after that, the last guy's incident, I decided to keeping those papers.
Okay, that's great.
Yes. And then the other measure I instituted was that if somebody says he's paying a quarter or a part and it will be left to a part, just write it against and let the person initial or sign against it. So that I know that this is the amount that is outstanding. And then I make sure that I send the invoices by close of day. That's normally what I do.
Okay, great.
Yes, yes.
So the last question is to anybody, like anybody can answer. In terms of compiling the receipts and invoices as soft copy into a Google Drive or a folder on your phone or a cloud, how do you think this will be easy to do? Is it something you've thought about, or you think it will be too difficult? Maybe Mr. Adiko, you can start, and then Madam.
Yes, it's something. What I do is that actually I save them. I save invoices and this in my cloud. I have a folder. Folder in the cloud that I save my invoices and then purchases. And then normally, sometimes if I don't, if they are not real invoices, and I think there was one time, yeah, it's good. I tried to even copy the invoices that I issue on OZE and then to put them back there.
Okay.
And I couldn't do that. I had a challenge. It's something I should be asking of how to do. Yes, that is after giving invoices, those ones that I give on OZE and it's still in the app. Maybe yes. How do I retrieve them? If I can retrieve them and save them also specially somewhere. So I save them as a backup, sort of.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will address that.
Okay.
Okay. Madam Patricia, do you also have an idea or an experience to share in terms of like thinking of recording, saving receipts or invoices in the cloud, or maybe in a file somewhere?
I wish I heard about that, but
Yeah.
I was always wondering, when I'm downloading them, it downloads double duplicates. And recently I'm going to be a part of I'm actually a part of a program where they're asking for financial proof that you have done financial keeping, either with apps or by yourself. And I now want to copy these. I wanted to copy these invoices and receipts. And as I talk, I think I've been able to do it. I've been able to do it. So Ozzy really has done me well. It was a long process. I was trying to do it on my phone. It wasn't working to copy from phone into folders. So I had to now send it onto the computer, download and put it in a folder. Maybe I haven't figured out how to do it on phone properly, but I think it's safe being on the computer more better. But I don't understand something. I'm not a financial person. I didn't do business. I don't understand why I should keep invoice and receipts at the same time. Let's say that someone is buying from me and I issue you an invoice, and now you buy, and I issue you a receipt. I'm thinking that maybe I should keep the receipt instead of the invoice, because the receipt is the final one that really shows that you purchased and this is what you pay.
Exactly. So even with the OZE app, once you share the receipts, if it's a partial payment and you've sent invoices along because it was partial payment, and then finally you send the receipt out, the receipt will be paramount because that is the last last action that you took with the customer. So you can save the receipts. That is fine. And even for the rest of the payments, when you go into the app, there's a history of each date and each payment that was made. So saving the receipts is fine. Unless maybe the last point was an invoice that was sent and then the customer hasn't paid, or he or she has refused to pay, then you can save the invoice somewhere so that in case of any dispute, that will serve as your evidence.
Okay, sorry. I have another question. So what's an invoice? So what if I send an invoice to someone and the person refused to purchase? That should not be put in the folder, right?
No. So for let's say in a form of a pro forma invoice, or maybe an invoice that the person doesn't make any payment at all, there's no need to save that because that wasn't even a transaction, right? So for invoices that you receive, it should be transactions that have been partially paid for, or transactions that you have handed the item over to the person, but they haven't made any payment at all. For that particular instance, it's very important for you to keep the transaction. I mean the invoice.
All right. So on the last question, I'm sorry about this. The last question is, so if I'm saving invoices and receipts, so how is it supposed to be saved? Is it like one customer, this is her invoice and this is her receipt, another customer, this, like, is it that invoices will be in a separate document and receipts in a separate document, or I have to find a way of connecting one customer's invoice to her receipt? Or what we discussed about first, overriding the invoice if there is a receipt, if there's a payment.
Yes. So this will also depend on how easy it will be for you. This actually is something we are thinking of or discussing as part of our accelerator session. So for example, if you like, you can create two folders, for one for receipts and one for invoices. Now the invoices will be in such a way that if, let's say, I buy from you and you give me the items, and I've agreed that in a week's time I will pay for the item. It's been 2 weeks, I'm not paying. It's been 3 weeks, I'm not paying. More than a month. Then you have the right to save that particular invoice in an invoice folder. And then the labeling too will depend on you. Somebody would like to label it by, let's say, the date and then the customer's name, right? So you'll have a number, a date, and then the customer's name. That would be the label of the receipt, so that when they go there or they click on Control F, they'll be able to type that and then easily get access to it. And then you have another folder which is for the receipts, which shows that these items have been delivered, I've received full payment. So you can keep these two folders, but then the name will depend on what, like naming of the files will depend on how it will be easy for you to also recognize them. Ideally, somebody will use dates and then the customer's name, dates and customer's name to retrieve these. But I don't think it would be ideal for you to save invoices for, let's say, a transaction that is happening. Let's say, oh, I've bought an item from you. I will pay within a week's time. I make the first partial payment. The following week, I make the next partial payment. You send me an invoice. letting me know of my balance. If I haven't exceeded the agreement period, and then let's say within the third week I'm able to pay, and then you send me my receipts, I don't think there's any need for you to keep the previous invoices, because automatically in the app it will record those payment dates in the app, and then what you'd have to give out or save will be the final receipt.
Okay.
Okay, and then Mr. Adiko was asking if how we'll be able to save these receipts, or maybe in this case, if there's a prolonged invoice that has not been paid for. So the invoices are sent in the form of a PDF. So what you can do is that once you click that particular invoice, you can save it, you can transfer it to any means. So let's say WhatsApp, you download it from WhatsApp, put it on a folder, or maybe your Google Drive, you can create a folder there, and then you can push this file there and then rename it. So how you will be able to access it. If it's a very old transaction that you have never sent a receipt before, you can do that by just clicking on sharing receipts. The date of the transaction will appear there. So even if it's in the past, the date of the transaction will be there. Now, the only situation that will, disputes that will happen is that the customer might say that, though I bought an item on this particular date, you didn't send me the receipt on that day, but the transaction will be there, all right. So it will be very okay to send a receipt on an invoice at least within 2 to 3 business days after the purchase, so that you don't wait to a very long time before you send one. Okay, so we've exceeded our time by 7 minutes. Sincere apologies for that. And I'd like to know if Prince or Oti has any other question to ask our participants.
No, Isaac, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll upload this this
also-
session. Hi, Oti.
I also don't have anything to add. I think
Thanks
you've
for
covered
joining us.
every
All right. Thanks for
part of
joining
it.
for the short
All right.
Great. So please have assurance that we also have this uploaded in our YouTube library, where you can make reference if you didn't join at the very beginning. So thanks for joining. Wishing you all the best in the businesses. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.